Ah, man. All right, you guys, this is a video I wasn't planning on making for quite a while because I was planning on keeping this car. And I know I'm gonna get a bunch of people in the comments. Why'd you sell that? You said you weren't gonna sell this one. And I didn't sell it yet, but it's here. And I'm driving this car to Kenosha, Wisconsin to meet a potential buyer for it. What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kyle Solkar, and this is my 991.1 Turbo S that I've officially owned for just under a year. Now, I've had this car as of today for 11 months, and coming up on 12. I would be waiting the additional month, but there's news at the end of this video. I'm probably going to be telling you that is going to give you the reason as to why that's not possible. But guys, if you've been following the channel, you saw that I had a 2012 911 Turbo S before this, and before that I had a 2021 G80 M3. Before that I had a 2015 F83 M4, and before that I had a 2018 F80 M3. And before that I had a 2002 BMW E46 M3 and probably 30 other E46 M3 variants, which you guys have probably seen on the channel. So I am a German car enthusiast through and through. I've been obsessed with BMW, Porsche, and Ferrari since I was a young kid, and buying this car was a huge deal for me because it's something I strived for so long. Now, I filmed the whole video on the pickup of this car. I actually flew to Alabama and drove it all the way back, and it was absolutely incredible. And since then, I put about 5,000 miles on the car. The car sits at about 56,200 miles. I bought it with about 51,100 or so. So an easy 5,000 miles on this car in 11 months. Borderline daily driving it, and I have absolutely loved every single minute of it. Today we're gonna go over the maintenance costs, the repair costs of just things I've had to do to update this car since I bought it, and the ultimate consensus with living with this 991.1 Turbo S, and if it's the best car for under $150,000. Now, in that range of $150,000 or so, you've got cars like the AMG GTS, a really nice Nissan GTR, potentially a McLaren 570S or a 650S. You used to be able to buy a very cheap Ferrari 458 Italia, but not so much anymore. You could definitely get a Ferrari 430, and things like G80 M3s and BMW M5s are right around that same price point. Now, I know there are a ton of other cars that are in that general price range, but for me, there was pretty much only one option. Now, my first car was a 1990 BMW 535i that I bought for $1,100. I slowly bought and sold a bunch of computers and phones until I saved up $13,000 and bought a 2003 BMW Z4 with 29,000 miles for about $13,000. I drove that car for a year or so. I put 10,000 miles on it, and I sold it for $16,000. That's where I started getting the idea of cars are investments if you treat them well and you market them properly and you are patient. And back then, being a hungry 16-year-old, I would write down my goals absolutely every single day. And at that point, this car hadn't even came out yet. But the car I always wrote down literally daily next to my goal of making six figures and growing my business was the Porsche 997 911 Turbo. And then my far out goal was always the Ferrari 458 Italia. Now, going on a couple years, I did save up some more money, and I ended up spending literally everything I had when I was 18, which was $36,000, on a 996 Turbo, a 911 Turbo with a 6-speed manual. So not only did I not have enough money to fix the 911 Turbo that had a bunch of issues at that specific time, I had no connections, and I really wasn't sure what I was gonna do next to make a bunch of money. So I got nervous, and I sold the car to my brother for about a $6,000 loss. The first time I ever really lost money on a car. And literally from that day on, I vouched to never buy a car that was beyond my means until I really made my next breakthrough in business. And that came about 6 to 8 months later when I started my agency, Solkar Media. Now, I spent a ton of time grinding away at Solkar Media and actually partnered with another person and started another creative agency back then. And I was doing well over 6 figures a year at 18 and 19 years old. But instead of buying a crazy car, I reinvested all of my money back into the business, and on the side, I would invest in older M3s like the E46, etc. It wasn't until my 21st birthday that I finally decided to lease a 2018 F80 M3, which you guys have seen a ton on the channel. Now, that was a huge deal for me. That was the first time I overrode that commitment to myself to not buy anything crazy. I did pros and cons lists. I stayed up all night. I made sure I could afford it tenfold, and it really did help me in more ways. And I'm super grateful that I ended up making that decision because it really pushed me forward, and it was really a nice proving ground to level up and keep moving. Eventually from there, I had that car for about 2.5 years, and I noticed the crazy spike in the car market. So I actually bought the car off of lease, and then I sold it in hopes of getting one of these cars. The problem is, at that specific time, the car market was so inflated, these cars had rose so much in price from when I first looked. So I decided to just hold off for a little bit, humble myself, and buy an F83 M4. Now, I actually really loved that M4. I modded it. You guys saw it on the channel. It was a fantastic car, and it really held me over for that period of time. But one thing I've always tried to do is level myself up to constantly keep pushing myself further and further and further, and to learn new things, open new boundaries, start getting into these six-figure cars, etc. But instead of buying one of these cars, once again, pushing off my dream, I decided to order a G80 M3. It made more sense at the time to buy one of those cars under retail because I have a great deal over here at Elmhurst BMW. Bought the car under retail, drove it for a year, and I sold it for technically more than I was into it, which helped me retain the money to be able to eventually buy one of these. And then once again, one day I came across a 997.2 Turbo S that needed a little bit of love. That was won over, and it was over in Georgia. And as much as I wanted to buy one of these, I ended up buying that car instead because I felt it had a ton of room for me to add value to it, to make some cool content with it, and slowly work up to one of these. And then one day, as I mentioned previously, some scammer on Facebook made up a whole fake persona and told me he was gonna meet me and buy the car. And I had just finished restoring the car at that point, so I was very happy with it. I just put an exhaust and a tune on it, and I really didn't want to sell it. So one night, as we all do as car guys, I went on Auto Trader, and long story short, I ended up lightly committing to buying this car, thinking the other car might sell, which broke my #1 rule, never count your chickens before they hatch, and ended up having to buy this while keeping the white one because that guy was a scammer. So I sold the white 997.2 Turbo S to a friend of mine to ease the burden of buying this car, and it was time to get to work. But overall, guys, over the 5,000 miles in about a year I've owned this car, it has been the most fantastic car I have ever owned and driven. The couple times I brought it in for service for little stupid lights, one time it was like cleaning of a sensor, then the other time I didn't tighten the oil cap properly, which was kind of a stupid move on my part. But nothing catastrophic, nothing expensive. Literally, all I've had to do is change the oil, and I've done a couple little cosmetic things to spruce it up a little bit and clean it and detail it and all that good stuff. This thing has been absolutely dead solid reliable. It's got an amazing sound system. The seats are super comfortable, they're heated and they're cooled. It's got the adaptive cruise control in the front, which is really, really nice in traffic. It's got the beautiful 4-point headlights. It's got the retractable spoiler. It's all-wheel drive and literally can take on any environment. Now, when I drove this car back the original 900 miles from when I bought it, I was so impressed with this car, especially being tuned. It's not annoying. It's a little bit smelly when you've got it in sport mode and the valves are open, but honestly, aside from cold start, as long as you're not keeping your garage door closed, this car really is a perfect daily driver. It fits a set of golf clubs in the back, and technically you could fit 2 people back there if you really wanted to. And now I want to level the playing field. This car is modified. It's got the GIAC Stage 2 tune, and it's got a full Army Tricks exhaust, so it's kind of cheating comparing it to a stock G80 or F80 or any of those cars. However, this car is so significantly better than those cars in so many ways. I'll tell you first, the transmission is way sharper with the PDK. The updated PDK in the 991.1 versus the 997.2 is pretty night and day. My 997.2 Turbo S felt like you're riding a Raging Buffalo, but this seems super, super, super refined, and it's definitely a huge cut above the BMW DCT. Now, I do think it's like a couple steps behind the newer R8s, like a 2022 R8. The shifts feel a little bit faster, but it's not really a make or break it. Now, this car is 9 years old and it looks pretty damn good. The only thing I would say not to do is keep the stock wheels on it because it kind of dates the car, but to each their own. I think this really brings up the car, and then helping tint the headlights to give it that GT3 RS look and tinting the taillights to kind of bring this black look all together really helps it. The GT3 RS steering wheel does a great deal of bringing it up to today's 2023 standards alongside the CarPlay. So honestly, as this car sits fully covered in PPF, it is like the perfect turnkey solution for anyone who's looking for a great bargain. It's comfortable, it's reliable, it turns heads, it's got carbon ceramic brakes, and you're saving about $60,000 to $70,000 off new. Now, the 992 Turbo S is about $250,000 right about now. So for half off, you're probably getting about 80–85% of the car, potentially even a little bit more fun of a car because it's a little bit more raw, a little bit more analog, and just a little bit more wild. But that begs the question, Kyle, why would you sell it if you have all of these good things to say? And the answer is, well, I don't need to sell it, and I don't really want to or have to sell it. But that reminds me of something important, is sometimes the best time to sell something is when you don't want to or need to sell it. That's when you're the less pressured to, that's when you make the best decisions, that's when you're the most patient. Whether it's in business and you're trying to exit a company, you should always exit when things are great, things are awesome. Too many people hold on to things and just ride it to the end. I don't know if I want to discover this car's reliability for another 10,000 miles. I could, but I'm always looking for the next adventure. I love sharing cars with you guys, and honestly, I think you're going to be very happy with what I'm forcing myself to do next after this because it's pretty in line with my goals. But with that being said, guys, we're off to Kenosha right now to see if we can close this deal. Thank you guys as always for watching. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you did not. Subscribing would mean the absolute world to me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.